Welcome everyone, and this is the Global Digital Library Informational Webinar for USAID mission personnel. We're very delighted to have everyone from the missions that's on the call today. I just wanted to briefly introduce everyone, and particularly on behalf of the reading team, welcome you, the reading team of USAID. So I am the Senior Advisor for the Global Book Alliance. My name is Linda Hebert. We also have Krista Gunderson, who is the Chief Technical Officer for the Global Digital Library and Chief Executive Officer of the Norwegian Digital Learning Arena. Liv Martin Norhag is also the head of NORAD's Digital Empowerment Project, as well as she manages the EduApp for Syria Innovation Competition and the Global Digital Library. And we have Limo, sorry for not saying your name correctly, from URC. He is the Training and Curriculum Development Specialist at URC REACH and responsible for managing Enabling Writers programs in 6 countries and provides technical support via distance coaching. For the Global Digital Library, Limo liaises with the GDL on material submissions and metadata, and he provides technical support on quality assurance for GDL materials. So we welcome all of our presenters this morning. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what the GBA, the Global Book Alliance, is. Which is an umbrella to what the Global Digital Library is also doing. The Global Digital Library is an organization that is intended to provide overview to the issue around providing books to children globally. As you can see here in this picture, we have children that are in a school. They're really dressed up, they have their uniforms on, but if you look behind them, that bookshelf is empty. We know that 56% of children globally are not going to meet the minimum proficiency level standards in reading and math by the time they should be completing primary education. 2/3 of those children that aren't learning are actually in school. And so one of the key reasons for this is the lack of reading materials and books. In order to learn, we know that reading and experiencing the joy of reading, children need quality materials and books, proper instruction, as well as practice and the support of their families and communities. They need this both in the classroom and they need it at home. Governments, donors, and schools and communities often face challenges in providing all the children with access to books and learning materials in a cost-effective manner. In many cases, the books just don't exist in the languages that children use and understand. The Global Book Alliance is actually an alliance of about 12 members. This is the steering committee of the alliance. We have a larger group that is associated with the alliance that has been very supportive in terms of providing technical support and assistance to the alliance as we build out our capacity. As I said, the Global Book Alliance is being temporarily housed by USAID in terms of day-to-day management and operations. But it is a broader partnership of actors working in this sector globally, and it includes bilateral development agencies like USAID, as well as multilaterals, government donors, and others. The partnership includes even a much broader array of actors, as I mentioned. The Alliance seeks to revolutionize how the global and local communities approach the challenge of illiteracy, particularly for early grade learners. So what is our approach to really address this problem? We have learned some lessons from the global health community in the health field around how to address the supply chain problems that exist both in the health industry as well as agriculture and others. And we have learned that governments, donors, and partners have come together to find ways to address one of the underlying root causes of illiteracy, and that's the lack of access to quality books and reading materials. The problems related to book provision are many, and business as usual is not going to result in really sustaining challenges and finding solutions to this particular problem. This is essentially an economic problem, and we are going to have to find some economic models and solutions that involve both the government, public sector, private sector, as well as donors. In order to get more books in the hands of children and teachers, the Alliance is looking at the whole supply chain. As you can see here, we're talking about the availability, title development, procurement, supply chain, distribution, and use. So we're looking across the entire book chain for some solutions to this problem. In order for us to address that, we have started to do some key initiatives around this. First is the launch of the Global Digital Library, which Krista will be and Lima will be talking about in a few minutes. We also are advancing work around the publishing industry and working on the establishment of publishing collaboratives. We also are going to start the Global Book Campaign. This is being developed right now to also address the lack of books, and particularly looking at the social behavior change and the culture of reading at community level. And then finally, we're also getting ready to provide some funding towards pilot countries that will address the specific supply chain issues within those countries and look at the synergy and collaboration that we can address the specific problems around the book chain approach. So I'm going to turn this now over to Krister, and he's going to give us the Global Digital Library overview. Thank you.
And as Linda has mentioned, the Global Digital Library is a part of the Global Book Alliance. As I assume that everyone on this call or in this webinar already knows the background and the need for early grade reading materials, I've just skipped the question of why we're doing this and I've gone directly to actually talk about what we are trying to achieve. And our goal is to increase the availability of high quality learning resources in underserved languages. And we're targeting early grade reading as a specific area in this project. And what we're actually doing is fairly practical. We're collecting resources, one of the main reasons for this call, and we're collecting high quality resources, and we're making them available on web, mobile, and for print. And those three last elements here, they're truly important because to be able to do that on our platform, really be what we call platform agnostic, we have to think really through how we recreate the content. So what we're doing, we're actually gathering content from different sources, and we decouple them, and then we reassemble them, and we make them available on web, mobile, and for print. And when I say mobile, I mean mobile as an app for Android, which means, for instance, that you won't be able to download the app on an iPhone, but you will be able to access the web on an iPhone. And print, of course, as you may, many of you are already familiar with, would be one of the sort of ways to reach a user. But as our experience so far is that print has been so far the primary channel. What sets us a bit apart from other projects out there is that we've been very focused on quality assurance. So when we gather content from any resource, whether it's African Storybook, from Book Dash, two of our sources, or from enabling writers, we do quality assurance on top of the quality assurance that has already been worked on onto the or into the project. And as a minimum, we quality check all our content one more time as it is imported into to our platform. In practice, this means that even though African Storybook has more than 4,000 resources available, we are only importing approximately 10% of these. And even when we do that 10%, we do quality enhancements on the way in. And we have a very distinct set of quality assurance standards that I'll also show you as I demo the platform. Accessibility has been a very important part of our project from the very beginning, and the result is that many of the resources that you see are more accessible when we present them than when we got them in, and the platform itself is nearly AAA VCAG compliant, which means we're at the top 2-3% of accessibility ratings amongst projects that we can compare ourselves to. We've also had user testing with user subjects that are themselves visually impaired. So we have also gone beyond that requirement, also in terms of designing a solution that is really accessible for test subjects that are in need of a solution that is truly accessible. So this has been really important for us, and as we see that some of the content has some problems when we take it in, we're also now developing our platform to be able to work with partners to actually increase the quality of the accessibility of the content while it is on the platform. So, for instance, when we get pictures from a service like African Storybook, we will add information to them so that they are more accessible than on our platform than they were on the original platform. A really important part for us as we are developing this platform in Oslo, in fact, it is really important for us to emphasize that it's a truly user-driven process where we have tested towards users before we started developing, during development, and after development. And we have until now had 6 rounds of user testing spread on 3 different countries, Cambodia, Ethiopia, and Nepal. And we'll add Kenya and Bangladesh to that list in just over a month. And what we do is actually have users test what we had developed and then change it based on that feedback. And everything you see in terms of navigation and how the platform lets you find resources, now I'll demo that afterwards, has been changed after these test rounds. So it's not only to get out there and get confirmation that what we've done is correct, we've actually made substantial changes to that platform. So the platform is not developed and tested in Oslo and Norway, it is tested where the users are. One really important aspect is Creative Commons. So Creative Commons is a free license for content that allows users to download the resources, print them, use them in any context they would like. And most of our licenses also even allow commercial use. So I'll get back to that when I demo the platform, but when you download the resource, over 95% of our resources allows any teacher, any parent, or any child to download and read it for free, but they will also allow a publisher to download it, translate it, and then sell it in the market with no strings attached to the original author at all. And this is also going to be one of my points when I go through the list of to-dos when you at one point want to contribute with content, having this license follow the content when it's published is really important. But the whole sharing dynamic around the platform is based on this portfolio of licenses, and they're actually global. So we're not the only one using these. This is a global set of licenses that allows for sharing. So in addition to taking in resources and then spreading them on 3 different platforms or in 3 different ways, we also on our platform facilitate translation into 300 languages. This is not machine translation, this is human translation. So any teacher, any parent can go into the platform, and instead of just downloading the book, they can, or read it, they can take a book and translate it from English into their own language, and then use it themselves. No book will, of course, be republished on the platform without quality assurance, but for your personal use or for printing and selling, anyone can translate the book on our platform and then use it in their own context. And this is, of course, for the smaller languages or for languages with no content at all. This is a tremendous opportunity. And for those of you who are familiar with Khan Academy, we are using the same translation platform as Khan Academy has been using for a long time. This platform also facilitates quality assurance of translations. If we get to that point where a group has translated, we can set some trusted parties to go through translations and then quality assure them as part of the measure to get it back on the platform. The platform is designed mobile first, so it will work on desktop, it will work for print, it will work on any device of any size, but it is first and foremost designed for consumption on web, for mobile, or for print. Those are the two main. The main reason for this is because mobile is a truly important part of any user in the target areas that we're looking for now. I just want to emphasize this part with print. These two are not sort of at the opposite end of a solution. They're very complementary. Or I don't know if I can say more easily, they're really good together. So you can both be a user of a mobile telephone and read there. If you want to scale it up and take it into a classroom as a teacher, and your students don't have any mobile telephones, you can just print it, the same book, and use it in a printed setting. So these are not the opposites. They're very well suited on our platform together. I just want to add that I just picked up some numbers from I think this post was from the World Bank. As a number right now of mobile subscriptions across Africa, and that number is growing rapidly, of course. So both print and of course web based on mobile. I'm going to go back to the web and demo the platform. A front page of a website called the Global Digital Library right now, with a beta at the end. And the platform is fairly simple. It's really designed for any users to be able to pick up this link and get started with reading in their language within a few clicks. So what you see here is the first page you will come into, and our primary navigation based on user feedback is finding your language. And right now we have 15 languages in our list. I have chosen English at first, but I can go to any one of these languages. And you can see that we have Tigrinya, we have Peri, we have Hausa, of course, Afana Oromo. And 7 of these African languages are based on USAID projects or USAID funded projects in Ethiopia. And I'll get back to those resources in a bit. But before I go into any of the other languages, I will show you how to navigate. And I'll stick to English, as this is the only language I know currently. After you've chosen your language, there are 2 content types we operate with. Library books and classroom books. And if a language has both, they will come up side by side. I'll demo that afterwards. In a language like English, where we only have library books, they will present only one. And the difference is fairly self-explanatory. Library books are books that you just read without any connection to any school or classroom, while classroom books are government approved, and they are, as you will see afterwards, they also have, of course, levels of decodable, and they're much more focused on actually learning how to read at the proper steps and levels. When I found my language and I found my type of book or category of book, I navigate by level. And on library books, it's level 1 to 4. And these are actually based on levels out of 2 projects. Pratham Books Storyweaver from India and African Storybook. And we have sort of made 4 levels based on the levels in these 2 projects. In addition to level 1 to 4, we have what's called read alouds, and these are mostly books that either are meant to read, being read aloud, or they're not leveled. So as you can see down here, these with the beautiful drawings, these are from a project called Bookdash in South Africa, and these are defined as read alouds mostly because they are not leveled from the provider. So you choose your language, you find your category, and then you toggle by level. And level 1 is the most simple one, and level 4 longer text and more complex stories. If I go into, let's say I go into level 1, I can get more overview of that if I think my child is suitable for that category. And you will see that some of them have very typical African feel to them. Some of them have a more Indian feel. One of the most translated books in this domain is called Fat King, Thin Dog. It is actually from the Indian project I mentioned. Happy and Sad is a book from African Storybook. The other one I mentioned is Bookdash. You will see that no books here are from Bookdash because they're not leveled. So this is one way to come step by step towards a book, and you should be able to start reading only by clicking twice if you have chosen your right language. Then you should be at this point starting to read a book. Before I start reading a book and showing you how that works, I will just go back and do a search, because that is the second way of actually finding a book. So if I've chosen my language, I can go to search. I can go for instance, cat, and then I will get the feedback on cat either in the title or description, and then I can choose the book. And in both cases, I come to the place where I get some sort of short overview of the book itself. In this case here, I can do many things. I could normally start reading, or I could download the book. If I download the book, I can either download an ebook that can be read entirely on my phone offline, or I can download a printable version of the book. The printable version can also be read on my phone or on my computer, but it's primarily downloaded for print. If I download the ebook on a computer, I would usually have an application natively that would just open it, and I can start reading on the computer. The same goes for mobile telephone. So this is actually one way to go offline entirely with some books, also from our website. If I start reading, it's the most common, we see this from our user analysts, analytics. It's the most common way to go. You come to the book and then you start reading the book directly. And this is more or less like toggling through a normal book. You go page by page until you are finished. And these books have been repurposed so that they're both readable on a computer, a tablet, and a mobile telephone, of course. And the navigation is actually something that you should be able to do on all these. And again, while doing this talk, I navigate with my buttons and not my mouse, going accessible for all. And this read experience is, of course, also been tested by our test subjects that are requiring an accessible formatted platform. If I close the book, I'll get back to the page I am on. And here you can see that the licenses they're mentioned for each book, and the reason for them being so prominently placed is actually because they are truly important in terms of what kind of reuse you can do. And in some very, very rare cases, you will see an NC at the end of this sort of setup of licenses at the end, and that means non-commercial. Those are very rare, but that would mean that the book cannot be reprinted and sold. But for more than 95%, you can actually here download this book, Combat Cat, and then sell it in any way you want without even talking to the author. And if you want to translate it first into your language, you are free to do so on our platform. And that bridge to translation brings me to the midfield of the screen here, where you actually can go in and translate a book yourself if you feel you have 40 minutes and you wanna create a book on your own terms. Usually for the books that you can see in the screen now, for instance, A Mouse for a House, they are very picture heavy and short on text because they're targeting an early grade reading level. So translating a book, if you're competent in language, the language you're trying to translate to, would take somewhere between 30 and 50 minutes at the most. So it's a fairly doable process. We had a translation event in Cambodia in January to test this, and we did over 40 books within 2 days using 25 students and some literacy experts to quality assure. So it's really a model that scales if you find books that are contextualized correctly or good enough for your use. We of course understand that some of the books are really contextualized, targeted to one culture, and are not sort of reusable for all cultures. But this book, for instance, would mostly work within in many contexts. So that is the platform in a short demo. I'm just going to show you how Amharic looks, because Amharic is one of the languages where we have both library books and classroom books. So these are library books from African Storybook primarily, and these, if I have the web with me, these are classroom books from a USAID funded projects in collaboration with Save the Children in Ethiopia. And these books are actually mainly what we're looking to get from as many of the missions as we can, or mission funded projects. We're actually looking to get books from USAID funded projects that we could then put in here and present in a reusable manner. In this case, anyone can go in and they can download the book, either printed or use it in a classroom of their own. And a funny story about this collection of resources, we have approximately 520 titles in 7 languages, is that the language or the content was produced of very high quality. It was licensed correctly under a Creative Commons license, which means you can reuse it as you please, but the files were only meant initially for print of natural reasons. And we actually can take them from a drawer in Addis Ababa and republish them on the web. A bit of a disclaimer, you can see that there is only a download button here. And one of the issues that I'm going to come back to in just a second is that even though the books are really of a high quality, the visual design is really nice. The format of the books here was only in PDF, which meant it was impossible for us to really repurpose it for mobile use. And I have presented this as a last point because my next point on the agenda is actually going through some of the how-to elements of importing content. So that is what I'm going to do now. I'm trying to transition into another slide here. And based on our goal to be able to gather as much content as we can from USAID-funded missions or USAID-funded projects, we have set some content guidelines for the GDL. And to start with, as I mentioned earlier, being able to reuse these resources properly, we need to have a very clear picture of who owns the rights to the content. In Ethiopia, that resulted in us being able to publish 520 titles, but approximately just as many, so about 600 resources, we were unable to publish because the rights to the content was not resting with USAID. And the license was a copyrighted license, while we would only like to import in this phase a license that is Creative Commons. So as a beginning, if your project are looking to get resources imported into the GL, be sure that you either own the rights yourself, or that you have based your content on already freely licensed content. The first one is the most relevant for you. Usually you have to secure that you own the rights. The second one is, for us, is really important. Be sure that the content is developed accessible for all. And we have links to some guidelines on all these points, especially this one, that will give you some pointers. And we can also, if we get to the point where we import, actually get feedback to each project. The most common problem here is that because we have simple content with pictures and text, the most common problem is that we have pictures in resources that has not been labeled correctly. And that goes for nearly all the content that we get. So we can be fairly helpful in terms of getting you some pointers on. This one is really important. We see that some of the USAID projects that we've have gotten some sample content from up until now, for instance, from the Philippines. They have good content funded with USAID funds, but they are and they're supposed to be shared freely, but they are actually under a copyright license. So in this case here, ours is to use Creative Commons or other free licenses. This will really help both for teachers and parents to avoid the situation of them doing something wrong or breaking the law, but also for publishers that would like to repurpose the content and reuse it for commercial use. So releasing the content under free license is something that we find is really important. And now we're getting fairly technical. So if you don't understand, if you guys don't, every one of you don't understand this, we have again some guidelines that we can share afterwards. And my advice here is at this point to start talking to some of the technical staff in your projects. But we have two formats, it's called, that we are looking to get the content on. The first one is EPUB. It's really an ebook. It can be read entirely on any device, mostly. And the other one is HTML. And the web itself is based on HTML. So these formats are not some specific formats for the GDL, but it's truly important that these are the formats. And the reason for not pointing out to PDF here is because PDF, and most of you are probably producing your content at this point in PDF. PDF is made not to be changed. The whole purpose of creating a PDF is for it to stay exactly how it is, while we want to reuse, repurpose, and be platform agnostic. And we can, of course, will also produce PDFs, but as an end product, not as a core product or a core format. But again, I truly appreciate that this can be fairly technical, but at this point here, we see that most of the projects that we've gotten content from until now are they're able to do it, but they're primarily focusing on print and therefore initially just doing PDF. We have a set of quality assurance standards. We'll be sure that you guys get a link to that after this webinar. And we have one set for classroom materials, and we have one set for library materials. And we would like, as a minimum, even though there has been very good quality assurance in a project, and mostly it is when it's classroom books, we would like the content to be checked against these criteria. These are not long documents. It's fairly straightforward to understand what kind of quality assurance elements we're looking for, but to be sure that everyone has the same set of criteria, we have defined those separately for library books and for classroom books. And again, here we're on to a bit of a technical element, but metadata is another word for just information about the books. So we would like to have title, of course. We would like to have the publisher's name. We would like to have a description of the book, and these are called metadata. And we have actually some examples of how you can do this, but for each book we get in, we would like to have proper metadata so that we can publish them in a correct and uniform manner on our platform. And in this case, we've also based ourselves on an international standard called LRMI. So most publishers, if you're working with them, should have that standard, as it is fairly basic. And we're looking for eight metadata elements that we need, but the whole spectrum that we're providing, the possibility of providing, is 26. So, but no one has actually given us metadata with 26 entities on. Mostly they're just aiming for those that we need to have to be able to publish. So, but this is basically just information on each book that we or resource that we actually need to be able to publish. As a final element, because this can feel fairly overwhelming, we have created a process description of how you can, if you have content that you feel would be suitable for the GL, we have a process that we have defined, and we can also guide you through this country by country, project by project. But I'm just going to show you some of the elements. So first of all, we usually get, of course, the content in PDF or HTML, and we get a spreadsheet normally with the metadata, and then we import it into our platform and let the original provider look at the content as it would be displayed on our platform, so that you can actually see that our import has been successful. Give us pointers on how it's actually looking on our platform. This is again to be really thorough on the quality assurance side. So if you guys, any of your projects would provide content, you will be able to see it on our platform before we go public with it. We call this staging digitallibrary.io. After approving content on our test platform, we do a final check based on the quality assurance standard that I just mentioned, title by title, and then the organization that we choose to be responsible for the QA would actually sign an online form that says the content is compliant with the standards. And then after this, and only after this, the content will be imported to the platform and published on the GDL for public use. And after that, we'll even then do another quality assurance run with our collaborating partner to be sure that what is actually live holds the same quality as the one we checked on staging. So as you can see here, the steps are fairly focused on keeping quality as an important part all through the process. I'm just going to end with showing you some examples. This is a batch of Bangla resources from one of our partners. just marked yes for each of the titles based on the quality assurance elements. And a sheet like this you would be able to get from us upfront, so that you can actually fill in based on a set of elements. This is the form that you would fill out, checking off elements for quality. This is actually a Google form, and to be able to in the rearview mirror, so be able to actually see what kind of batches has been approved towards our quality assurance standards. Again, doing this process properly has been a very, very important focus for us. If you want more information about the project, you can go to home.digitallibrary.io, and if you want to go to the site itself, it is only digitallibrary.io. And if you guys now want to try to start looking at the service on your phones, for instance, you can do that, even though I'm looking at the same URL for web. So you will find the same platform, the same navigation on mobile phones. So, Linda, I think that is my talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Krista. That was very, very helpful, very thorough. We are now going to transition to Limo, who's going to give us some specific information around how USAID missions can actually engage with this.
Thank you, Linda. Nice presentation. And me, I will take the section where it highlights the role of REACH in sourcing the materials from USAID missions. And let me start by saying that REACH is a USAID-funded 5-year initiative to build a community of practice, a professional network focused on improving reading outcomes in the primary grades. A major initiative under REACH is to trial, refine, and promote innovations. A major initiative under REACH is to trial, refine, and promote innovations to the global reading community, and one of which is the Global Digital Library. So the overall responsibility of REACH in sourcing materials for GDL is to ensure that materials uploaded to the GDL are of high quality and align with the GDL minimum standards. In this regard, REACH is establishing a community of spot reviewers of decodable and labeled books who will be responsible for assessing quality of materials submitted for GDL. Specific responsibilities include that REACH will serve as a point of contact to USAID missions for labeled and decodable books for GDL, so that we guide them, the missions, on the submission of the materials, and in creating metadata spreadsheet, coordinate the upcoming survey to assess missions' readiness to contribute to the availability of the target material, and provide confirmation to the GDL regarding the quality of sourced materials. In addition, REACH will coordinate pilot spot review process with a sample of missions books. As you can see on the screen, we are targeting books from 41 missions, including missions from Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Northern Africa, and Middle East. And with these 41 missions, we are targeting materials in over 100 local languages. We are assuming that missions materials are of high quality. However, we'll be asking verification from the missions and IPs on the quality assurance which each mission's material went through during their development, to see the alignment with GDL quality assurance standards. GDL quality assurance standard for the GDL classroom books have been developed to a large extent based on how USAID missions do quality assurance for early grade reading materials, and therefore verification on the mission's quality assurance in most cases is verifying to the GDL standards. In addition, while the materials are online, as Krista mentioned, a sample of the mission's materials will be exposed to spot review as a pilot for spot review process established for spot checking quality of decodable and labeled books submitted for GDL. This pilot will inform more the GDL quality assurance standards and the spot review process for the next batch of books submitted for the GDL platform. USAID's Office of Education has asked the URC to undertake a survey to assess format and availability of reading materials, in this case, decodable and labeled books, that have been developed with USAID funding globally. The purpose of this survey is to assess the current and expected ability of USAID missions to contribute content to the Global Digital Library. This survey will be administered in the first week of June, and we kindly request every mission to complete the survey questionnaire, which will be sent to them after this webinar. And basic informations like date of project completion and submission by IPs to USAID or to the missions, a language of materials, number of titles available, in this case decodable and labeled, whether materials are decodable and labeled or labeled books, whether materials went through a quality assurance check, and it will also establish format of materials, whether materials are in EPUB, InDesign, or PDF format. But our interest is EPUBs, and also we will be happy to get InDesigns. We'll also establish whether these materials, the type of license of these materials, whether they are open license or they are copyrighted to government or to any entity which participated in their development, and also whether the materials have government approval. So there, down here is the link, but we will share with you after this webinar so that you can start completing the survey. And this survey will help us a lot in prioritizing which materials are we going to start with to import to the GDL platform. We have timelines here, and our goal is to be able to receive submissions from all the projects by September this year. But we do need to be sure that the appropriate format and metadata are ready to facilitate upload to the GDL. And we have persons to contact at URC REACH, and the point of contact, therefore, at the mission will be expected to liaise with the URC REACH team in planning and implementing relevant follow-up actions so that share available materials with the DDL and ensure readiness of future materials. At REACH, we have Samara, who is a project coordinator. Samara will be confirming with the missions on the submission of completed survey questionnaire. She will also be organized for submission of materials and metadata, schedule pilot for book reviews, coordinate spot reviews. And another person is me, Limo, and I'll be available for questions regarding the GDL and the survey. Also, I liaise with GDL on material submission and metadata. So any question related to material submission and metadata, I can also assist. But I also refine the book review process. As we said, we are going to establish a spot review of materials we'll be importing for GDL, and therefore it will be informing what we can change, what we can modify in our quality assurance standards, or what we should guide missions more so that we get the most appropriate format we would like for the GDL. So with that brief presentation, I thank you so much for joining this webinar, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Limo. That was excellent. Thanks so much. We're now going to turn to Liv to give just a brief discussant review of what we've heard, and then I know that we are very much at the hour right now, so just a very brief comment from Liv, and then we'll close. If you do have any questions, please feel free to get in contact with any of those that are on the panelist list. We're more than happy to answer any questions. So Liv, over to you for a final word.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Linda. So this is Liv Nordhaug from the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD. I just wanted to say that we're thrilled to be part of this, and I really just want to stress that what we've heard through this webinar, from the presentation by Linda about the Global Book Alliance, and then the more technical presentation by Christer about how the Global Digital Library is a part of that Global Book Alliance value chain, and then from Limo on sort of how content can be submitted to the Global Digital Library. I just want to stress that, you know, it's a very big we in this alliance, and that the USAID missions are a fundamental part of the success of the Global Digital Library. We have really witnessed that from the launch in Ethiopia with USAID Ethiopia, for instance, that this is really a win-win for all parties involved. We have, you know, resources of tremendous quality being imported to the Global Digital Library. But I also think that from the mission perspective, USAID Ethiopia can sort of testify that this has also been, you know, a big communication boost for them. And I think they also see a great value in being able to share their materials. So I just wanted to sort of close with those words of encouragement to say that this is something that means a lot to the success of the Global Digital Library. I hope that those of you from the missions who are involved in reading resources, you know, will follow up on this dialogue. And Linda, I just want to go back to you now. And I don't know if we have to end on the hour or if we can open up for a few questions. I'll leave that to you to decide. We just wanted to thank everyone for participating in the call.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. We really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.